Welcome, everyone. My name is Jeff Lincoln. I'm the Director of Operations for the Jewish Federation. I work closely with Grant in the day-to-day management and oversight of our community-wide security initiative called the Safe Indy Initiative. And I'm going to turn it over to Grant here in just a second. I just wanted to go over some very quick logistics. You paid all this money tonight to hear from Grant, not from me, so I'll be very, very brief. Tonight is going to be this is a Zoom meeting. We were going to do a webinar. We've done training similar to this for pretty large groups, and we've already trained several hundred members of our community on both situational awareness and countering active threat training. And this is really part one of a two-part series. And so be sure, if you haven't already, after this evening's presentation training, to also sign up for part two of this series, which is countering active threat training. And the Safe Indy Initiative, very briefly, is a community-wide initiative that is a partnership between the Jewish Federation of Greater Indianapolis and our national security partner, Secure Community Network, who Grant works with. And we have a memorandum of understanding that places Grant in our community. And the security initiative, the Safe Indy Initiative, is a partnership with all of our Jewish community organizations that you see over on the left side. So it's truly a holistic way for us to look at security beyond just our individual organizations, but on a community-wide level. It's really the first time that we've done anything like this as a federation across the entire community. So it's very exciting to have all of these Jewish organizations on board. Again, this is a Zoom meeting this evening, and you have the ability to control your camera. You have the ability to control your sound as well. During the presentation, it would be great if we could all be muted, but don't be shy. If you have a question, feel free to take yourself off of mute and connect with Grant. And feel free to use the chat as well if you'd like to type in. I'll monitor the chat throughout the evening. If you have any comments or questions that you would like to pose, and we'll certainly try to get to all of those. And if we can't, we'll certainly get back to you later tomorrow or later in the week. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Grant to get us started.
Thanks, Jeff. Hi, everybody. It's great to see all 15 of you here tonight. As Jeff said, this is going to be an intimate setting, which in a lot of ways is fantastic because it gives us an opportunity to interact more than we could on a webinar. So I'm kind of excited about working through this training today in this setting. If I haven't met you before on another webinar or another Zoom call, just let me introduce myself just briefly. I've been your community security director since April 1st. Prior to starting with you, I spent 30 years with the FBI. My last job was special agent in charge of the Indianapolis field office of the FBI, which I was thrilled because I was able to come home and bring my wife home after we'd been gone for 32 years. So I'm home now after a long time away through an FBI career and 4 years in the Marine Corps before that. So I'm very fortunate to be working with all of you on what I think we all agree is a very important mission for the Jewish community around the country. I just wanted to reiterate something that Jeff pointed out about interacting tonight. This presentation is not just, thankfully for you, this is not just going to be me talking about PowerPoint slides. There's a fair bit of that, but there's also some practical kind of practice things that we're going to work through very briefly that you might want to grab a pen and a piece of paper for. And we're also going to watch and talk through a number of videos to highlight some of the concepts that I'm going to be discussing tonight. So since we are in this setting, and it's an open Zoom meeting, I would really ask that try to treat this like we're in the conference room, and we're actually all together. That this using a Zoom call like this gives us the ability to do that. So the more you participate, I think the more we'll all get out of this. So don't be afraid to take yourself off of mute and bring up a point, bring up a question, and there'll be some natural break points where it's going to be sort of imperative that we have a little bit of a discussion. So let's try to make this as interactive as we can. And I think we'll all get the most out of it that way. The training tonight, as you all know, is situational awareness. We're going to talk a lot about what that means, and kind of the overall concept of what situational awareness gives to you if you exercise it. But just in a general sense, I love this quote: "It wasn't raining when Noah built the ark." And I love it because it really kind of captures a big focus of the Safe Indy Security Initiative, and certainly our training pillar, and that is preparation. The fact that you registered for this training and are here tonight means that you have a preparation mindset, which is fantastic. So that's a great starting point for us to build on. Jeff mentioned my parent organization, the Secure Community Network. I will just briefly mention, before I show you a fantastic video about SCN, the best way to think about the Secure Community Network is really as the homeland security apparatus for the Jewish communities in North America. That's really the best way to think about it. And here's a brief video that will give you some more insight into SCN.
The Jewish community has faced threats for the better part of 3,000 years. But today, here in the United States, they are at one of their worst points that they've been in recent memory.
In Chicago, a man vandalizing a synagogue.
65 bomb threats made to dozens of JCCs.
A shooting at a synagogue outside San Diego.
2 separate shootings at Jewish sites in Overland Park, Kansas.
11 people are dead after a man walked into a synagogue near downtown Pittsburgh and opened fire.
To think that it can't happen, I've experienced it. It does happen.
That reality needs to be accepted in order for us to counter and to prevent a second massacre.
We will not choose the time and place of the incident. We can choose our preparation.
If you're a Jewish organization and you haven't heard about Secure Community Network, you need to reach out to them.
Every Jew deserves to feel safe and secure in this country.
I really believe that this training had saved my life.
How do you quantify that? How do you put a value to it?
Secure Community Network is a resource to the entire Jewish community.
The Secure Community Network is composed of security experts, former, current military, law enforcement, national and homeland security backgrounds who have dedicated their lives through their service to protecting our country and now the Jewish community.
Having the ability to have a group like Secure Community Network there makes all our jobs easier and makes everybody safer.
Our mission is to ensure the safety and security of the Jewish community. And so we do that through working with communities on intelligence and information sharing, providing assessments, and then working to improve the community through those assessments, physical infrastructure, training, and then, of course, if there's an incident, we work to respond to it at the request of the community.
SCN is the model for doing it right when it comes to community security.
The Secure Community Network is recognized by the Department of Homeland Security as a national best practice.
I'm really grateful to SCAN.
The only way that we will continue not just to survive, but thrive as a community is through empowerment.
When people feel empowered, they don't feel scared.
I think this training is a matter of life and death for anybody that goes through it.
I wish there were more hours in the day that we could provide the resources necessary for the Jewish community.
Every dollar that we get can go to helping training a classroom full of students. It can go towards doing an assessment on a Jewish community center or working with a Hillel on campus so that our Jewish community is more safe and secure today and into the future.
We are an extension of a 3,000-year history. The responsibility and the obligation to do something. Evil triumphs when good men do nothing. SCN, the Secure Community Network, is the response to that statement.
Just as Israel has an Iron Dome missile defense system, in America we need a security shield to protect our community. The Secure Community Network is the official safety and security organization of the Jewish community in North America, is working to build that shield every day.
I would just add to that, I think that's a great overview of SCN. If you'd like more information about Secure Community Network, you can write to me, you can call me, or you can hit their website at securecommunitynetwork.org. And I would say the same thing about the Safe Indy initiative in general. We have a website that you can get to through the Federation main page. There's a big banner right there on the main page that will take you to the Safe Indy Security Initiative website, but you can always call me or write to me as well. And we will, you can find my email address on the website, but I'll ask Jeff to go ahead and put it in the chat as well, as in addition to Jeff's email. So let's dig into this. What are we getting at with this training about situational awareness? These are kind of the 5 kind of key things that you're going to understand after this training, or at least have a better idea of after this training, and primarily what role situational awareness can play in your life and your family's life and the Jewish community as a whole. That's what I'd really like you to focus on from this slide. Is this situational awareness does not just apply to you as a member of the Jewish community, or when you're at synagogue, or when you're at the JCC. It applies to you all day, every day, really from the time you step out of your house, and even when you're in your house. But it comes into play definitively when you leave your house and go out in town. So don't think of it just in your role as a member of the Jewish community. Think of situational awareness as impacting your role as a citizen and your day-to-day life. Let's start with another interesting video that goes from the comical to the tragic, but it really highlights kind of what we're getting at with situational awareness overall. You know, I would just highlight from that video, really the last line. Someday this might save your life, or someone else's, or a group of people that you happen to be with. Even the comic, the funny examples from that video could have just as easily been tragic, but they just all highlight what it could look like if you're not paying attention to what's going on around you. And again, sometimes it's only funny, but sometimes it can be tragic. I also would point out from that video that if you were paying really close attention to the video, you notice that in a number of those instances, someone having a telephone in their hand and paying attention to that had an impact on what happened. So this slide, I won't belabor it. It just gets at some potential risk situations that we think about when it comes to people and to vehicles and events. And I'll just highlight a couple from each one of these. I mean, think about your day-to-day life, how often you actually pay attention to people that are around you, let alone whether or not they're paying attention to you. I would ask you to really think about that. You can't understand if somebody's paying attention to you if you're not paying attention to them. When it comes to vehicles, how many of us actually pay attention to vehicles that are following us or that are just behind us? A vehicle that repeatedly passes your home in your neighborhood, or a vehicle that you frequently see in places that you wouldn't normally expect it, not just in addition to your neighborhood and where you work. Maybe you could be in a position where you see the same vehicle at the mall or Walmart or wherever else you go. Again, it's a matter of paying attention to those who might be paying attention to you. The third set of bullet points there is all about paying attention to activity, from suspicious activity to actually people committing crimes. Again, it's paying attention to others and always keeping in mind that other people may be paying attention to you and understanding what that could potentially mean. Real quickly, just if you want to see a kind of a school book definition of what situational awareness, read the top one. If you're not really interested in that, just want a practical view, read the bottom one. Always being aware of what is occurring around you. In other words, paying attention. That's the way I like to think about situational awareness, is always being in a state of mind where you're paying attention to what's going on around you at all times. Why it's important. Help you recognize safety considerations and security dangers. The second one is extremely important as we talk through situational awareness. It guides your response if a bad situation evolves. I talked at the beginning about preparedness. And when I say preparedness, what I would like you to think about is the word prevention. Preparedness leads to prevention primarily, but it also puts you in a better position to respond if something bad does happen. And right along with that, being situationally aware, paying attention to what's going on around you is going to allow you to react faster if something bad does happen. And the bottom line at the bottom of the slide, enhancing your situational awareness will definitively improve your chance to survive if something bad happens. And again, not just in your life in the Jewish community. We think about being in synagogue, but I'm talking about behind the wheel of your vehicle. I'm talking about walking down the street. I'm talking about when you go to the gas station. And later we will see examples of all of these circumstances. 5 levels of situational awareness. I'll just kind of let this slide kind of play through, but I'll talk through these. I want you to focus on the middle of this slide, focused awareness. You know, oftentimes in life, we say that the answer is someplace in the middle. And that's true when it comes to situational awareness and kind of what this continuum looks like. On the left side, we see an individual that's got a cell phone in his hand. He's got his earbuds in. He's tuned out. And you're going to see more examples later of what happens what could happen when you're tuned out. This is a great photograph because it's a photograph of all of us at different points in time, really, isn't it? Paying attention to our phones, going for a walk with earbuds in, sometimes going for a run with earbuds in. Extreme examples, I've seen people riding their bicycles in the city with their earbuds in, and I frequently see people driving their cars with their earbuds in. I'm not a fan of earbuds. In fact, the only time I use them is when I'm sitting at my desk here at home and I'm on the phone. So huge distraction for human beings of all ages are our cell phones and our earbuds. That second level there, this individual doesn't have a phone in her hand. She doesn't have earbuds in. She appears to be paying attention to what's going on around her, and she's relaxed. She's in a state of relaxed awareness. I'm going to skip by focused awareness, and we'll come back to that. The fourth picture there depicts a high alert situation. If you're in traffic and someone spins out in front of you, or there's a pile up in front of you, you have to take immediate action. You're in a high alert state, but hopefully ready to respond. And then the far right box there depicts paralysis, which is a state that people can find themselves in if they are completely unprepared for a critical event to take place in their life. And again, it can be anything from an attack on the street to a vehicle accident to, God forbid, a terrorist event in one of our houses of worship or a commercial institution out in town. Paralysis comes from lack of training, lack of awareness, and lack of preparation. So I said at the beginning of this slide, the answer is someplace in the middle. Focused awareness, right in the middle of that slide. That's what I'd like you to pay attention to, and that's what I would like you to practice. If there's a place to live on this continuum that's depicted on this slide, it's right in the middle, focused awareness. And picture yourself driving that car in that photograph, driving during a rainstorm, driving during the recent snowstorms that we had. That, when you're driving in those circumstances, it's an easy example because most of us have been there. When you're driving under those circumstances, you have a heightened focused awareness. You are ready for essentially anything to happen. All of your senses are operating at their full capacity and their highest level of efficiency, and you're ready to respond. In other words, you're prepared. So again, when you leave your house in the morning, whether it's to go to work or to go to the store, go to synagogue, go to the JCC, whatever it is, when you leave your house, I would ask you to start thinking about focused awareness and being in the middle of this continuum. Not completely tuned out with your earbuds and your phone, and not completely paralyzed. Focused awareness is the place where we can live practically in our day-to-day lives. Right there. Just a quick slide on what impacts our situational awareness based on the way our brain functions. And I'm certainly not a neuroscientist, but we can all, I think, relate to the ideas that are depicted by this slide. You're participating in training today. And whether you get a lot out of this training or whether you get just a little bit out of this training, there is going to be some impact on how you view situational awareness and whether or not you practice it after tonight and really put it into practice in your day-to-day life. So that's going to impact the way you view events and the way you view things that are happening around you and how you pay attention. Your biases are going to have an impact on the way you pay attention to things that are happening and whether or not you pay attention to things that are happening around you. Your general perceptions as a human being and the environment that you spend most of your time in is going to have a lot of impact on the way and the level at which you pay attention to things that are happening around you, and just your personal experience. What you've been exposed to in your life. Whether or not you've been a part of a critical incident, whether it's a car accident or a health issue or God forbid, some kind of an active threat scenario. All of these things are going to have an impact on how closely you pay attention to the things that are going on around you, and how effective you are when it comes to situational awareness in your day-to-day life. But again, I would just ask you to think about this training tonight. And as we continue to go through this, think about the things you hear and put them in the context of your day-to-day life and how you can actually practice these concepts. So categories for situational awareness that we're going to talk about and actually do some practice. I mentioned these earlier. People, paying attention to people, paying attention to activity. In other words, the things that people are doing. And then vehicles, people in their vehicles and what they're doing in their vehicles, important for us to pay attention to. And then general situations that happen in your day-to-day life. Cyber's mentioned there. Just a disclaimer, we're not really going to talk about cyber situational awareness in any detail tonight. I actually, along with my partners at the FBI and DHS, have started a series of cyber security training events that we're going to continue in the community. So we're not going to spend a lot of time on cyber tonight.
Grant, on our follow-up tomorrow for the participants, we'll also include the link to cybersecurity training that we recently did.
Great, thanks for that, Jeff. So we're going to practice a little bit. Nobody's going to break a sweat, but it might be a little bit fun. And it really just depends on how much you want to participate. So we're going to do a little practice with people, a little practice with activity, when there'll be some videos involved there, and then some practice with paying attention to vehicles. Describing people, just take a look here. Everybody knows how to describe a person, right? We all know how to do that, but here are the things that that we would point out that we should pay attention to in our attempts to describe people. And just keep in mind, this is going to build from people to activity and vehicles. So as a baseline with people, these are the things that obviously, and they're obvious, so I'm not going to read them to you. But things to be focused on, I would point out, bottom right corner, distinguishing features. And this applies to people and vehicles and activity all equally. Things that aren't normal or things that stick out about people or their activities or the vehicles that they might be driving. Same thing with vehicles. Focus on the bottom there, distinguishing features. One thing a lot of people don't think about when it comes to describing vehicles is actually describing the people that are in the vehicles as well. So you might want to make a note of that. And describing activity. The 5W is very important. What, when, where, why, and who. So we're going to practice. So I'm going to click through some images. You're going to see them for about 5 seconds, 4 to 5 seconds. Then you're going to have a chance to write down what you observed. And then I'm going to pause it and we can talk about what you observed. And then we're going to look at the image again and you'll see what's actually there, and you'll be able to compare it to what you initially thought you saw to what's actually there. So again, this can be a little bit wonky if we don't participate. So don't be shy. Let's see how this works. So think about what you saw there for 4 or 5 seconds. Write it down. Anybody want to volunteer? I'm happy to use the Socratic method and start calling on people, but I'm hoping there'll be some volunteers.
I can go.
Go ahead, Michael.
I saw a white male, 60s, in his 60s, I would say, gray hair, sunglasses, on a mountain bike.
On a what kind of bike?
I think it was a mountain bike.
So that's interesting, a very specific description of the bicycle. Thanks, Michael. Anybody else? Anything different?
Yeah, he was wearing shorts,
Black bike.
sunglasses, grayish hair.
Good. Anybody else?
Yeah, he had gray hair and he was wearing loafers with white socks.
Okay.
I had black socks.
We had a black bike.
Oh.
Somebody said a white bike, right?
It looked like a mountain bike. It's a city bike.
So nobody described his shirt. I think one person described his shorts. We had a description of loafers. We had white socks. We had black socks. I think we had white bike. I think we had black bike. I think we had 2 or 3 gray hair, and I think a couple of sunglasses. So I think, and then we had mountain bike, which our first, Michael jumped in with mountain bike. So I think as a group, we did pretty good. So let's do one more of these.
Camera.
A spooky person in a hoodie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was a
In
white
black hood, in a black hoodie.
It was black, really? Okay. What else do we have?
Had a backpack.
Backpack,
With a camera.
camera.
Navy blue, a navy blue hoodie.
I'm with Jeff.
Okay.
We got a black
White
hoodie, we got a
sleeve,
navy blue hoodie. What else do we have?
White shirt underneath, a
White
white
long
shirt
sleeve
underneath it.
Yeah. White long sleeve shirt, camera, backpack.
Nice cuticles.
I concur. Did we miss anything?
A scarf.
The white t-shirt under, or white long sleeve shirt.
Yeah, I think somebody described the white shirt underneath.
Okay.
Yeah.
We got the camera. We had either black or navy blue hoodie. We had backpack. I don't think we had the color of the backpack though, did we?
Yeah.
Yeah, black.
Black, okay.
The hoodie looks more like a scarf.
It does look like a scarf, and there's kind of a blue band around the bottom of it there on the neckline, which is sort of unique.
Hey, Grant,
Yeah,
right on the left shoulder, is that a gap between the hoodie or scarf and the sweatshirt?
yeah, and if you look even closer, so you all are kind of digging into this in detail now. If you look a little closer, you can see around the edges. We're not talking about a hoodie. We're talking about a scarf.
Yeah.
Like a ripped piece of fabric that's around this person's head. Does anybody have an opinion about male or female? Did that strike anybody on first glance? Did anybody have a bias that would suggest one way or another, whether it was a male or a female?
I had female.
I did as well.
Female? Okay.
It looks like her nails might be painted or polished.
Good observation. I think that's possible. Okay, so we're off to the races. Good participation. This is gonna get even more fun as we get into some more of these and then some of the videos.
And actually, Jeff, if you look back at the last one, it was a scarf because it comes down along his back underneath the backpack.
Yeah, it's a white shirt with a blue shirt over the top of it, and then the scarf overlaying on top of that. So here's a good video. We can talk about this. Observing and recalling details. Anybody ready to describe what you just saw?
Two men jumped out of a car and took off running.
Outstanding, Lori. What else?
Thank you.
A Range Rover.
What kind of vehicle?
Range Rover. And the one on the
So hold on a second, Paul.
Okay.
So Lori, if you just called the police, if you just dialed 911, you said two guys just got out of a car and ran down the street, but you actually knew it was a Range Rover, right? You just didn't say it.
I just didn't say it. Range Rover, and actually one went straight down the street and the other one veered off to the right.
And you probably know what color it was, the Range Rover.
Looked like that dark black or greenish, that hunter green kind of.
Orangey red shorts.
Anybody else?
Right.
Anything you saw from that brief snippet?
Yeah, the gentleman running on the sidewalk was white. He had shorts on. That's all I caught, I think.
Anybody else?
There were other people running.
The guy on the sidewalk, I'm not sure if he was white. Seemed to be bald headed, maybe peach colored shorts with a bat, a kind of a silver bat, baseball bat in his hand, ready to do some damage.
So Michael, you're going to teach this course the next time we do it in April. So let's check this out in a little more detail.
All right.
Did anybody catch that? Anybody recognize the license plate? The state?
Is that New Jersey?
New York.
Or New York.
New York, yep.
Big gold chain.
Sure.
Oh,
But I can't tell the color because the chain's under the t-shirt, isn't it?
That's Jeff's bias. He's assuming it's a big gold chain.
That's my bias.
So etch that video and those images in your mind because you might see it again. That was good though. That was fantastic. That's not a lot of time to observe something. So let's take a look at vehicles. There you go, 5 seconds. Hold on a second.
No license.
Anybody? You had 10 or 15 seconds.
In a long time. So it was a Kia silver with a sunroof, sporty kind of, dark windows. Oh,
Four
fog
doors.
lights.
4 doors.
Sunroof. And
5-spoke wheels.
Ah, good, Paul. Was it wheels or hubcaps?
They looked like wheels.
Yep.
wheels.
Fog lights.
So I had written down a sporty indentation on the side door panels.
Yeah, what do you call that?
I don't know, sporty indentation?
I'm sure there's a technical term.
Chicago parking lot.
All right, let's do another one of these. A little bit different scene. There's a lot going on. It was probably fairly obvious what you were supposed to pay attention to.
Hmm.
What do you think?
License plate,
Pennsylvania.
JTX 2707.
Ford
Good.
Focus.
Ford Focus. Yep.
Was
Very
it
focused.
Virginia or Vermont?
Hatchback.
Hatchback. Did anybody find themselves in the first second or two looking at everything else in the picture?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a little bit obviously sort of a chaotic photograph, but even knowing that you're going through a practice drill like this, sometimes it takes you a second or two to focus on what you're really supposed to focus on because there's more going on in the scene. I just thought that was interesting in that photo. So there you go.
I was going to say, wasn't there a licensed dealer on the bottom?
Burlington. Yeah.
Pennsylvania, yeah.
Yep, good. Muncie, New York. This is a couple of great examples coming up here about why license plates are so important. Frankly, they solve crimes. And in Muncie, a witness wrote down the license plate, gave it to the police, and the license plate hit on a license plate reader after the attacker left the scene, and it directly led to the attacker's arrest. Another phenomenal example, this is the attempted Times Square bombing back in 2010. 3 street vendors recognized that the vehicle wasn't quite sitting properly in the street, kind of riding low and kind of listing to one side based on all the weight that was in it. And they alerted the police and averted a tragedy of numbers that we probably can't imagine from that car bomb. Paying attention to the license plates is extremely important. And again, put this in the context of your day-to-day life. Now we're going to get into workplace and house of worship, and then a little bit of statistics about violent crime. Let me back this up a little bit. Those are the issues that you can confront in the workplace. Staff disputes, domestic incidents are huge in workplaces. Here's the synagogue and school. The things we should be paying attention to, or why people pay attention to us, targeting us or the building. They want to steal something or do some other type of crime, or worst case scenario, a hate crime or some kind of active threat. These FBI statistics from 2020 point out where hate crimes are happening in our society. And if you'll see the 7% slice of the pie there, that's houses of worship in general. So you see, I talked in the beginning and have talked frequently about this is not just related to your life as a member of the Jewish community. This applies to our lives in general and our activities in general in the places we go every day, whether it's work, school, or house of worship. You can see the bulk of hate crimes and anti-Semitic incidents thankfully, don't happen in our houses of worship. They happen near our homes and in commercial establishments and generally out in town.
Hey, Grant?
Yeah, Paul.
Do you know how much that varied from previous years?
Perfect question for this slide.
Oh,
I didn't understand your question.
Yes, thank you. No, I just asked before this came up how that number varied from previous years.
Okay, well, there you have it.
Perfect segue.
The incidence of bias-related crimes, including assault, harassment, vandalism, really started going up in late 2016, and then pretty significant rises in 2018 and 2019 and into 2020, although the statistics won't be available for another year. The most important thing I wanted to point out on this slide, in addition to the uptick in bias-related criminal activity, 60% of religiously motivated hate crimes in 2019 were targeted toward the Jewish community. 60%. So these next couple of slides are kind of interesting. And does anybody recognize that place? Some of you may have been there. That's the JCC and Federation offices in Memphis. These two slides really just kind of give us some things to think about. And I would ask you on both of these slides to try to think about situational awareness from the standpoint of the bad guy. Avenues of approach for vehicles, places around buildings where people that want to do us harm or steal our things can hide. Vulnerabilities that we open ourselves up to on sidewalks and in parking lots. How close the buildings we're in are to streets and high-speed vehicle activity. And then I think the thing that maybe is a challenge, the biggest challenge for us, is thinking about where people can conceal themselves in an effort to put themselves in a better position to victimize us. So that's really what this slide is designed to highlight. And then the second slide you may recognize. Anybody know what that is?
Is that the Senate? No.
That's our Jewish Community Campus in Indianapolis.
So yeah, the text just covered Congregation Beth-El Zedek as well, which was initially in the picture.
Just highlighting some vulnerable areas where cars are parked, where people can walk, what they have access to. I think the thing to think about for this slide, since it's our own campus, and this is just a reminder, if you weren't aware, that our campus, the Jewish Community Campus, is a completely open campus. You can drive on our campus really anywhere you want to go except the back, that area that goes behind the Holocaust Memorial and the area where we have summer camp. We've closed those gates, so you can't drive through there anymore. But generally, every place you can see on this Google Maps photo, any member of the public can go. So that should impact the way you approach your visits to the JCC. Just the understanding that members of the general public can go anywhere on foot or in vehicles on our main campus. Not that that's a bad thing in any way, because we want to maintain an open and welcoming environment. It's just a point to be aware of, that when you drive into the Jewish Community Campus, you're still in a public space. Elevated risk areas. These are going to really get at kind of the day-to-day situations we find ourselves in as members of the public. And we're going to talk about two things: gas stations and ATM machines, which are two of the most targeted circumstances for criminals.
Hey, Grant,
Yeah, Paul.
do you know why Ford has gone to putting their gas tanks on the passenger side? Because that top picture is a perfect example of a risk.
That's a great question that I don't have the answer to. I've never even considered it. But you're right. I have a vehicle with a gas tank on the passenger side as well.
Is it a Ford?
Nope. It's a German-made car, as a matter of fact. So gas stations are high-risk areas. Everything from vehicle theft to petty theft to homicide and abductions have taken place at gas stations all over the country and all over the world, frankly. It is a place to pay attention to your surroundings. Because when you think about it, it's just like when you stop on the interstate and go to use a rest park. You have no idea who's in the rest park, right? And that could have easily been one of these situations that we discussed in more detail. But just like going into a rest park where you have no idea who you're around, boy, a gas station is the same way, especially if it's out on an interstate exit and not in your kind of the community where you live and move around every day. So all kinds of potential for criminal activity, and really a place that we should really pay attention to our surroundings when we're there and maintain really the highest level of situational awareness. This is a fantastic video. Anybody want to describe what you just saw?
Well, the person was filling up his tank, his car was unlocked, and somebody came around and stole his car.
Yeah, have you ever heard of that happening before?
I always lock my car when I fill it up.
Yes, thank you. That's the right answer. I think that this video is really in a sort of an extreme example. What more frequently happens is people get things stolen out of their vehicle when they're standing at the gas pump. It happens all the time, all over the country. Your approach is exactly right. It's not the full answer, but it's a good way. It's a good way to the perfect scenario, and that is locking the doors when you get out. I could make an argument in certain circumstances where locking your doors might not be the perfect scenario, depending on where you are, but I think as a general practice, it's a great approach. So here's the wheel. Just follow it in a clockwise fashion, things that you should pay attention to. And you're going to find this remarkably similar to the wheel that I put up for ATM machines. Is anybody loitering in the area of the gas pumps or the gas station? Is anybody approaching you? Take a look at the vehicles. Eliminate distractions down there, number 5. Really think about this. Don't have your phone when you're at the gas pump. Either put it in your pocket or leave it in your car. Have your card ready to go when you jump out. So you're minimizing your time outside of your vehicle. A practice that I've started doing years ago, I don't care if it's 30 below zero or 100 degrees, I get back in my car. I start pumping the gas and I get back in my car. I don't stand outside of the vehicle. That's one approach. I'm not saying it's the best approach, but it's a good approach to at least consider. Obviously, locking your door. Number 8 up there is this is an interesting spot to put this idea of approaching people or potentially countering somebody else's approach. Somebody that's going to victimize you, whether it's in a gas station or at an ATM machine or when you're walking down the street, they are not looking to have a confrontation with you on your terms. They're looking to have a confrontation with you on their terms, meaning they want to surprise you or potentially victimize you and you not even know it happened until later. So this idea of not only being aware of who's around you at a gas station or the ATM machine, but engaging people in a positive way. In other words, having eye contact and under certain circumstances, actually acknowledging them by nodding or saying hello to people. It can be disarming to some people, but it can be disarming in a good way as well. Because again, criminals are generally not interested in engaging you on your terms. So another elevated risk area, rural areas.
Fran, can we go back 1 minute?
Yes.
Does the time of day mean anything, day versus night? Is the risk higher?
I think it does. I mean, that's a good point. I will be what I would rather consider both gas stations, high risk outdoor areas and ATM machines. Yes, definitely nighttime can be worse depending on where you are. It could be a heightened threat level. Obviously, when it's dark, people can hide and you can't see as much of what's happening around you. But from a general situational awareness standpoint, I would ask you to consider the location as your priority, not what time of day it is. In other words, I would ask you to practice the same level of situational awareness during the day as you would at night, if that makes sense. So rural areas, I'm going to cut to the chase on this. Think about where you're going if you're going to a rural area to go on a hike or go camping or go on a bike ride. The thing I can't overemphasize here, and if you don't take anything else away from the slide but this, is don't go someplace where you won't have the ability to communicate. We've all been there, right? Most of us have probably driven on highways where you don't have cell service for 25 or 30 miles. I would just ask you to think about if you're a camper or a hunter or a hiker or a cross-country cyclist, think about planning your trips from the standpoint of, are you going to be able to communicate no matter where you are? And think about the implications from a safety standpoint if you do spend an extended period of time in an area where you can't communicate. So really consider this slide really as a way to highlight the importance of being able to communicate with your phone in any kind of situation, but particularly rural areas. Build that into your planning process, because as we all know, your ability to communicate can help you avoid danger, can help you get away from danger, can save your life in a medical emergency. It's interesting how much time we all spend on our phones and how distracted we are by our phones just as a matter of our day-to-day lives, but how quick we can sometimes be to put in our email out of office reply that we're going to be out of cell phone and email range for the next 3 days, and I'll respond when I'm back. I would just ask you to think about the implications of that, the safety implications, and how it impacts your ability to be situationally aware and to respond if something bad happens. Here's my favorite, the cash machine, which is something I never do. I probably shouldn't say never. Very, very, very seldom do I use an ATM machine. And I can comfortably say that I never do it by myself. The same principles apply at an ATM machine as apply at the gas station. It really is a highly targeted area by criminals. And if you really think about it, think about when you're standing at a gas pump, maybe trying to get the right credit card out, or you're potentially on your phone, and think about how focused you are when you're doing that. Think about how much more focus you have when you're standing in an ATM machine and you're trying to get a deposit right, or trying to make sure you take $20 out instead of $200. You are really focused on that computer screen when you're standing in an ATM. And frankly, it's as if the rest of the world isn't revolving at that point when you're standing in an ATM machine. I really can't think of an area in public spaces where you're less aware of what's happening around you than when you're standing in an ATM machine. If you have to use ATM machines, do your best to ensure you only use ATM machines that are inside a lobby where you have to gain access, instead of this scenario here where it's just on the street. But I would strongly recommend that you think about ATM machines in general, and really think about what I said about how focused you are on that ATM machine when you're standing in front of it, and what can happen because you're paying such close attention to what you're doing on the computer screen. At the very least, don't go to an ATM machine by yourself. If it's on the street like this and you can pull up right in front of it and someone's with you, they can stay in the car and make sure that you're kind of in a safe position when you go up there. I would just ask you to really think about how you approach an ATM machine, and frankly, whether or not you use them at all.
Hey, Grant.
Yes, sir.
Two things on that. Number one, you said don't go, leave somebody in the car. I'd always taught my kids, lock the car, but keep your hands with the panic button in your hand if you have to use a street machine.
Yeah.
But don't leave your car open.
Yeah, just like at the gas station, right? It's the best practice, lock it up. And same idea, right? When I said at the gas station, I put the nozzle in the car and I get back in the car. And then when it clicks off, I jump out and go do it. Same principle applies at an ATM machine. If there's somebody that can stay in the car and to literally watch your back, that's the best case scenario. And Paul, what you're describing is someone who is in a position to respond, right? That's really what you train your kids to do.
Or if they even start to feel somebody grab them or whatever, keep that panic button in your hand.
Yep. That's great advice.
All they need to know here is a deterrent sound.
Same idea as the wheel we looked at for the gas station. A couple of things that I would point out. Obviously, put your phone away before you approach if you are going to use it. But I hope after tonight, nobody in this group ever uses an ATM machine again. Probably not the most practical, but I say that kind of as an extreme comment because I want you to really think about it before you do it. Understanding that there are going to be circumstances where you probably have to do it. I think the top left is important too. Don't count your money at the machine. And don't spend any more time at the machine than you absolutely have to. but the same principles apply when you approach the ATM machine. Check out the people that are in the area, check out the vehicles that are in the area. And really, this is really about paying attention to your surroundings. And if you're uncomfortable with it, like I hope you will be after tonight, don't do it.
So I have a question. What about the drive up type? Like I generally go to one that's a drive up during the day in a little shopping area near my house where there's lots of people walking around and stuff. And I've honestly never felt uncomfortable from my car doing that.
Yeah, I think a drive up, and when I lived in Indianapolis, when I did use an ATM machine, it was a drive up. Provides you a lot more options when you're in your vehicle, right? You can drive away. You can get out of the area, eat very quickly and easily if you see something that you're suspicious of, or if you're being actually targeted and victimized. So I think that's definitely a better scenario, especially like you described in an area where there's people around all the time. Probably the best case scenario, what you just described is probably the best case scenario for using an ATM, without a doubt. This is good stuff here. When we get back into an environment when we're in crowds again, which hopefully will be very soon, things to consider when you're operating in crowds, whether you're down on Massachusetts Avenue or in Disney World, wherever it is. I can just give you probably the best advice that's highlighted on this slide is don't let your valuables out of your field of view. Don't put phones or pocketbooks or wallets in your back pocket. Keep everything in your front pocket. If you're carrying a bag, keep it in full view, keep it in front of you. Bags, backpacks and shoulder bags that are thrown over your shoulder where you can't actually physically see it. That's what criminals that are working crowds are looking for. And I'm going to show you a really good video that's going to highlight this. Anybody want to talk about what you saw in that video? Anybody see a criminal?
Yeah, the woman behind took the wallet out of the backpack, or out of the bag, I should say.
So interesting. My question was, did you see it? You saw criminal activity.
Oh.
But which is accurate. Did you, before you saw the activity, would you have tagged that person as a criminal?
No.
Back to that slide I gave earlier in the presentation about our biases, and kind of what we're used to seeing impacts our situational awareness. So you saw the activity, which is great. But the interesting thing is the people engaged in the activity would not necessarily be tagged in a crowd as people that would do that.
True.
Handbag out of view of the victim, and then the handoff. Let's talk about it home a little bit. We've got just a few more slides to get through, and then we're going to open up to Q&A. take a look at this and see what you think it is.
Huh. Breaking into somebody's patio?
You're the suspicious type like me? Yeah, you
No.
automatically think somebody's breaking in, right? Somebody that's not supposed to be there, probably. In my view, that person's demeanor was just kind of indicative of they shouldn't be there. Did anybody else just kind of get that from the way the person approached the door? That they weren't supposed to be there?
Yeah.
And the way he was working the door and the knob, and it was dark in there.
Just another run through of things to consider when you describe someone in any circumstance, but a little bit different when it's nighttime. Don't know the color, but you know it's a two-tone baseball cap. Dark pants, but it's hard to know what actual color they are. So just different considerations at night. Just some things to consider, all common sense when you think about keeping your home safe. The thing I think about at home, as well as in working with organizations in the Jewish community, locking the doors, first and foremost, and lighting up your house. There is nothing that will keep bad guys away from your home more effectively than motion detector lights or static lighting. If you live in an area where you could actually have static lights around the perimeter of your house and still be a good neighbor. But if nothing else, having motion detector lights, criminals of all sorts do not like the daylight. This is a great video. This is Jeff and I talk to the leadership in our community all the time about using technology to help us be better and safer and more secure. This is a great example of technology in action.
Get away from the door. Caught in the act, a homeowner scaring off would-be burglars, all thanks to his doorbell cam.
I thought it was very odd. I was like, what's going on? And obviously they were up to no good.
Think about it in terms of situational awareness. Your Ring doorbell and the app on your phone allows you to have an incredible level of situational awareness. You can be 5,000 miles from home and, like that guy, put yourself in a position to potentially keep yourself from being a victim.
Was
And
at
have a
work when
copy
he got an
backup.
alert from his doorbell cam app on his phone. Someone was at his house. This man, dressed as a construction worker, knocking on his door, apparently checking to see if anyone was home, before radioing a second man to allegedly help him break in. That man pulling out a screwdriver, which the two then used to try to wedge open the door. That's when Clem uses his app to send the pair a message, loud and clear. Get away from the door. The two taking off. Police.
Think about it. Think about how technology, just like that. I mean, that's probably the best example of how technology that you can hold in your hand can help you maintain a heightened level of situational awareness as it relates to your home. This is an interesting video. pay very close attention to this.
Both have that. Whoa. Oof.
The rest of the story, and a reminder that sometimes when it looks like, if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, sometimes it's a duck, right? What we observed the first time we watched the video was a pretty good indicator of something bad might be getting ready to happen. But I think when we talked about it the first time, we didn't put it in that context, right? We just put it in the context of how we were describing these individuals. We weren't really focused on their potential activity because it hadn't happened yet, frankly.
Well, I did say he was about to do something.
A crime is about to occur, right?
Yeah.
This is the first time you've seen this one. So can anybody talk to me about what's happening right there with our victim? You can't see it from that exact frame, but does anybody know what he was doing?
Looking down at his phone?
Exactly. And by the time he looks up, so if you look off into the distance there on the left, you can see the attackers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is an incredible depiction of how a lack of situational awareness can literally allow you to walk right into a very, very dangerous situation. And this could have been avoided. I harp on phones all the time, but that's the other thing that I hope you take away from this discussion tonight is thinking about how often you have your phone in your hand and how often you're actually looking at it and paying attention to it, especially when you're in public places. This is scary. By the time he knows what's happening, it's too late. Anybody have an opinion on what a better scenario might have looked like here?
Well, I still think he might be turning on his camera on to take it, put it on a video clip, suspecting.
Maybe. I don't think so, though. What I think about when I see this video is I think about run, hide, fight. The response to a critical event, a crisis event, an active threat event, which clearly a heightened level of situational awareness would have given some indicators that that was potentially what was going to happen here. So a heightened level of situational awareness would have put this person potentially in a position where not only do they stop and not enter the real danger zone, but actually turn around and run the other way potentially while dialing 911. So the lack of situational awareness in this case allowed this individual to walk right into the danger zone. And by that time, it was too late to take any kind of action to protect himself or get other people there to protect him. So this one again highlights how our phones can sometimes save us and how they can also just walk us right into a dangerous situation that we might not be able to control.
Grant?
Yes, ma'am.
So Grant, I was taught that statistics show that when people are running away and they're yelling help, people are less responsive than if you are yelling fire. Is that actually true or still true?
That's a great question. I actually haven't heard that. But that's interesting. I don't know the answer to that. And I don't know if there's any actual statistics that would back up that claim. I would just go back to my earlier point, Toby, that criminals are generally not looking to target someone on the victim's terms. They're looking to target someone on their own terms, meaning that if that individual in that last video would have turned around and run away while dialing 911, screaming, "Help me," the chances of the assailants taking a different course of action or potentially deciding not to do it would have been significantly higher.
Good point.
Regardless of what the victim was yelling.
But Grant, in that scenario, he couldn't have turned around and started running if he didn't see or perceive the threat. They were running, ducking down behind car, and unless he had 360 vision going around, he probably wouldn't have seen that threat.
No, the point, I think, Paul, the point of this circumstance is he didn't give himself the opportunity because he had his head down looking at his phone in those last 75 to 100 meters between where he comes into the camera view and where he's actually victimized. He didn't provide himself the opportunity with a heightened level of situational awareness.
I think we can look at this particular video and maybe even make some assumptions that even take us, to a deeper understanding of how critical it is to be in that middle zone in terms of situational awareness. I don't know if anyone noticed, but he appeared to be an Orthodox Jew, and let's make an assumption that this was taken in one of the boroughs in New York City, where there's been a significant uptick over the last couple of years of attacks on Orthodox Jews in Brooklyn. And so if this was in Brooklyn, right, and you're walking in night and you've got your black coat and your payos and your black hat, you shouldn't be on your phone, right? So, I mean, I think that's even taking it to a whole nother level if we put it within context of recent history.
Excellent point, Jeff. That individual was not exercising focused awareness. It's a great point. I think you'll like this video. This is a good news story.
Whoa. Good news, nobody hit the dog.
Oops. Sorry about that. Hold on.
Good thing they hadn't turned the car off.
She seemed like she was pretty well trained to pull that off.
The thing that's most remarkable to me about this is how quickly she determined this was a bad day.
Mm-hmm.
And also how quickly she made the determination to act, or made the decision to act. This is situational awareness and run, hide, fight all in one scenario. She figured out what was happening very quickly and she took decisive action. Really, really incredible. She observed what was happening. She very quickly oriented on what was happening, the context of what was happening, and she made it happen. She made it. She quickly turn the tables to her terms, not the bad guy's terms. It's a great, good news story and a great example of what a heightened level of situational awareness and a commitment to action really looks like. Just a couple more slides, just to kind of close up, and then we'll go to questions. When you think about suspicious activity or criminal activity or emergency activity, I think everybody, it's common sense that we call 911 in an emergency. There are certain situations where you may not feel comfortable calling 911 because you're not sure. I think the key takeaway from this slide, there's a lot of information on here, but the key takeaway is if you're not sure if something is criminal activity or not, call 911. And the 911 dispatcher will determine if you're talking to the right person or not. I mean, most of us have a pretty good idea. We'll have a pretty good idea if you're seeing the difference between unusual behavior, suspicious behavior, like our guy at the back door at night that we observed, and criminal behavior, like the video we just saw where that lady got out of Dodge when she knew that she was either going to be robbed or kidnapped. But if you have a question in your mind about something that you're seeing, the old adage, if you see something, say something. If you think it might be an emergency, call 911 and let them sort it out. And again, I think a heightened level of situational awareness and practicing your situational awareness is going to, over time, help you understand the differences between unusual behavior, which you can go people watch any place and see a lot of unusual behavior, and suspicious behavior, and actual criminal behavior. A heightened level of situational awareness will help you become comfortable with all three of those concepts. Call 911, obviously. Call SCN. So I'm gonna modify that. I'm your community security director, and I work for the Secure Community Network, but primarily I work for you here in the Jewish community in Indianapolis. If you see something that is an emergency or you think it might be in an emergency, call 911. If you see activity, whether it's anti-Semitic activity or potential criminal activity at a synagogue or someplace else in our community, call me or call Jeff. If you see something happen online that you're not comfortable with and you're not sure what to do about it, call me, and I can help you with that. So call 911 in an emergency, even if you're not 100% sure that it is an emergency. And if you're concerned about unusual behavior or suspicious activity and you just want to talk through it in the context of your own personal life or your life in the community, call me. I'm happy to talk through these things anytime, day or night. Situational awareness on a global level. If you're not a member of the Secure Community Network daily update email, I would invite you to go on the website, securecommunitynetwork.org, go to the bottom of the main page and sign up for the SCN daily update, which is, I call it the early bird. It's designed to be open source, meaning media reporting of activities and incidents impacting the Jewish community in the United States and globally. It's really the easiest way day to day, without having to look yourself or tweak the search engines on your web browser. It's the easiest way to maintain situational awareness of what's happening at the national level, in the Jewish community and the global level, including events that could impact our safety and security as a community. So I would strongly encourage all of you to sign up for the SCN daily update. One final comment, and then we'll go to questions. And Jeff, I know we've gone over a little bit, but hopefully we still have some time to answer some questions if we have any. Just an overview tonight of situational awareness and some things to think about going forward. The one thing I would point out, back to slide number 7 or 8 probably, and Jeff brought this up just recently during the presentation, focused awareness. That's where you want to live your life, in a state of focused awareness. And I hope as we went through this that you wrote down some things that are food for thought and things that you can think about practicing in your day-to-day life. So I would ask you to review those things. But more than anything else, none of this matters if you're not committed to action. That last bullet point on that page right there. Like the lady in the good news story that we saw at the end of the presentation, she figured out what was happening very quickly based on her heightened level of situational awareness, and she was committed to action. And her action likely put her in a position to save her own life. No doubt about it. So with that, I will open it up to questions.
Yep. Hey, Grant, before we go into questions, go ahead and turn to the next frame really quick. No need to play the music, but just in case anybody needs to jump off, because we were only going to go an hour and a half initially. And I think I speak for Grant in saying that we're happy to stay to answer any questions that anyone has, as long as that goes this evening, and feel free to drop off if you need to. But again, this is part 1. So we used to do a combined training that included a handful of slides of situational awareness, but really the focus was on countering and active threat training. And we've now split that out into 2 trainings. So this is the first time that we've done this kind of full-blown situational awareness training to the community. And we hope that you found value in that. And we'll be doing it a couple more times. And then kind of part 2 is the countering active threat training. So you can see all the dates up there. We ask you to please choose a date if you haven't already for the countering active threat training, and please pass this information along to people that you connect with, to family members, friends, neighbors within the Jewish community. We very much want to touch as many people within the community as possible, and this is age appropriate for middle schoolers and up. So if you have children that haven't seen it, grandchildren that haven't seen it, please, invite them to join us in a future date as well. So I just wanted to get this out there before anyone leaves us, and please feel free to ask any questions.
So hearing none, I just want to thank all of you for being here tonight and for the participation. That was fantastic. And again, I think a smaller venue like this, in lieu of being in person where we can really interact, I think your participation made this a lot more valuable for everybody. So I really appreciate that. Final thought, Jeff will be sending out a course evaluation. I would just ask you to spend a couple of minutes on that. Obviously your feedback is very important as we continue to further develop the training program for the community. So anytime that you could spend on an evaluation for us, we would greatly appreciate it. So again, thank you all for being here tonight. Look forward to seeing you at a future training event, countering active threat, or any other training events that we put on down the road. And as Jeff said, please spread the word about the trainings.
Grant, I do have one question.
Yes, sir.
I was noticing that when I go to power down my iPhone, I can either slide to power off, or there's an emergency SOS. And I don't know what that, I think it makes kind of a siren noise, but do you know what that does? The emergency SOS on the iPhone?
That's a great question. I don't know. Hold on a second. Oh, it's for emergency services. With emergency SOS, you can quickly and easily call for help and alert your emergency contacts. When you make a call with SOS, your iPhone automatically calls the local emergency numbers.
Okay.
So it's 911.
Cool. And then I was just curious, Jeff or Grant, if you could say just a bit. I'm already signed up for the March 15th Countering Active Threat training, but I was curious, are you able to just say what we should expect from that?
Yeah, so actually at the beginning of Countering Active Threat training, I do another kind of just a very short refresher on situational awareness. But if you go back to that slide of the lady jumping back in her vehicle and getting away from those assailants, Countering Active Threat training is really focused on the worst case scenario. If you are at Walmart or, God forbid, in a synagogue or any place and there's an active shooter event, or really any kind of critical event, but really focused on an active threat, an active shooter, somebody with a knife, somebody that's intent on harming people. But the easiest way to think about it, it's really SCN's version of run, hide, fight, and all of the implications of run, hide, fight, considerations for when to run, when to hide, when to fight. So it's really focused on, while situational awareness is focused on preparedness and prevention, Countering Active Threat is what to do when the bad day comes.
Okay. Yeah, in one of the videos, I think they showed a classroom where people were barricading the door and putting a belt around the thing to keep the door shut. Is there, do you think, or is that was that an in-person?
Oh yeah, that's an example of practical application we can do if we're in an in-person setting.
Yeah.
And Michael, you bring up a good point, because I think it's important to point out, in addition to doing kind of community-wide training like this, these situational awareness, countering active threat, when we get into more in-person training, we're also going to be doing greeter usher training, specifically targeted to synagogues. All of these trainings are designed to really work well in a smaller group in-person environment, a board meeting, a smaller group, of 15 to 20 at the synagogue. So that's the other part of the message in doing these 6 training events in March, April, and May, is get the word out to the community of what's available, and bring it into a smaller group in person where that's appropriate.
Awesome. All right. Thanks so much, Grant. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks,
really
Michael.
appreciate everybody being here.
Hey, Grant, thank you.